No group of people took a more dramatic leap in lifestyle or prosperity in such a short time than wheat farmers on the Great Plains. In less than 10 years, they went from subsistence living to small business class wealth, from working a few hard acres with horses and hand tools to being masters of wheat estates, directing harvests with wondrous new machines, and a profit margin in some cases that was 10 times the cost of production. In 1910, the price of wheat stood at 80 cents a bushel, good enough for anyone who had outwitted a few dry years to make enough money to get through another year and even put something away. 5 years later, with world grain supplies pinched by the Great War, the price had more than doubled. Farmers increased production by 50%. When the Turkish Navy blocked the Dardanelles, they did a favor for dryland wheat farmers that no one could have imagined. Europe had relied on Russia for export grain. With Russian shipments blocked, the United States stepped in and issued a proclamation to the plains: plant more wheat to win the war. For the first time, the government guaranteed the price at $2 a bushel through the war, backed by the wartime food administrator, a multimillionaire public servant named Herbert Hoover. Wheat was no longer a staple of a small family farmer, but a commodity with a price guaranteed and a global market. When he first came to No Man's Land, Charlie Lucas had hoped to make just enough from his half section to feed his family. But within a few years of arriving, he was part of the great frenzy to turn over the ground and get as much wheat as possible to sell abroad. If he could produce 15 bushels an acre on his half section, that meant 4,800 bushels at harvest. It cost him about 35 cents per bushel to grow. At a selling price of $2 a bushel, his profit was nearly $8,000 a year. In 1917, this was a fortune. A factory worker on the Ford assembly line made only $5 a day, about 1/8 the take-home pay of a prosperous wheat farmer. Imagine doing 30 bushels an acre, or double. And Hardy Campbell, through his epistles on dry farming, said any yeoman could do 50 bushels an acre, even without adequate rain. Still, this was something audacious. People had been farming since biblical times, and never had any nation set out to produce so much grain on ground that suggested otherwise. If the farmers on the high plains were laying the foundation for a time bomb that would shatter the natural world, any voice that implied such a thing were muted. The real difficulty of the semi-arid belt is not the lack of rain, wrote Hardy Campbell in his manual, which sold for $2.50, but the loss of too much by evaporation, and this can be largely controlled by proper cultivation. What had been an anchored affinity of grassland just a generation earlier became a patchwork of broken ground. In 1817, about 45 million acres of wheat were harvested nationwide. In 1919, over 75 million acres were put into production, up nearly 70%. And the expansion would continue in the decade after the war, even as there was no need for it. It was one of the occasional episodes in human history where fortune were said to only go one way. The uncertainty of 1919 were over, wrote F. Scott Fitzgerald, the most insightful chronicler of the hubris of the 1920s. America was going on the greatest, gaudiest spree in history. For a young family casting about for a way to make good money out of nearly nothing to start, the dryland wheat game looked like an easy gamble. Indeed, the self-described wheat queen of Kansas, Ida Watkins, told everybody she made a profit of $75,000 on her 2,000 acres of bony soil in 1926, bigger than the salary of any baseball player but Babe Ruth, more money than the President of the United States made. But with those guaranteed prices, more grassland was plowed, with more grass turnover, means the Dust Bowl became a reality, all the more faster.